Hey guys, welcome to Alice Everyday, and today I'm going to talk to you about all the tools that I recommend and I use, and especially the ones I used when I started woodworking. Before we begin, I do want to let you know that all the links for these tools are on the description down below. I'm also not getting paid by any of the brands that you see here. These are actual products that I use and I recommend. Is my personal take on them. And if there is a product that I do not recommend, you will definitely know about it. Without further ado, let's get to the recommendations. So guys, the first things that I want to talk about is what should you get when you start woodworking? Now, that's a very broad question, and there's a lot of things that you got to keep in mind for the answer. The first thing is, yes, you should know what your budget is because you're gonna end up getting what you can afford. Do not ever try to get something that you can't afford, especially if you're just starting woodworking. If you're starting woodworking, you don't know what projects you're gonna do, and something you're gonna learn throughout the years is that there's a lot of tools that are specific to projects and things that you wanna accomplish, and those tools can actually be very expensive because they're very specific for what they do. So with that in mind, you need to remember that there's going to be a lot of tools that, especially when you're starting woodworking, you want to get because they're going to be very general to what you can accomplish. With the basics of woodworking, you're just going to remove some stuff, and then you're going to add some stuff. That's pretty much it. Anything that you can think of woodworking can be done. Actually, even with the first point that I'm going to talk about, which is hand tools. With hand tools, you can pretty much do everything you can. With power tools, it's just going to take you longer and a lot much more effort onto it. But that doesn't mean you can't do it. That does mean that people do it. People actually enjoy working with hand tools and actually prefer them over power tools. And they can get the job done. It's just going to take a lot of skill and it's going to take a long time. And hence, that is what power tools mean. They're just going to help you. There's a tool that's going to help you do things faster. That's pretty much it. With this section right here, which is hand tools, you can get everything done. It's just gonna take a lot longer. That brings me to my first point with hand tools. Now, do I recommend that you go for all hand tools? Absolutely not, especially if you're starting woodworking. That's something that's gonna get very tedious if you're doing it at the beginning, but actually, if later on with the time, you're gonna learn that's actually a very nice craft and very nice skill. You're gonna start tending to go to hand tools even though you have power tools, and it's a very nice thing about woodworking, and it gets you nice and rooted to the culture of working with your hands, and sometimes you just want precision that you cannot achieve with power tools, and that's why you turn to hand tools. Now, I would recommend if you start woodworking, get a small set of chisels. That is something you're going to use pretty much in every single project, and it's just to do little details. The next thing that I do recommend is you're going to need a rafter square or a speed square. I got this very cheap as plastic, and I use it every single project. Why? Because you're gonna need stuff to make sure that it's square, or you're gonna need to make actual angles, and this just works perfectly. I do not recommend you go buy a $200 set unless if you can and will need it, and just go for it if you have the money. But one of these is gonna do just fine. So with this set, you could also get a small metal one. Either one of these, they're actually gonna be perfect. Now, you can't get angles with this, but you can get angles with this. So I would actually recommend a rafter square over that. Something that you might not be expecting for a combination is something metal that is a straight edge. You really don't need this side. All you care about is that this is straight. Now, why do I say this? Because one of the tools that I have here, which is my circular saw, was the first tool, one of the first tools that I got, and this was way before actually getting a table saw. And this actually pretty much helps you work as a table saw. You can lay this down on any wood and just slice it through. You can get an actual version for a track saw, but it's gonna be a lot more expensive. This does the trick. Do not be afraid of just getting one, and you're gonna see how much you actually use it. Now, a tool that you can never have enough of, and you're gonna learn very quickly about that, it is the clamps. Any type of clamp, you will always want more because you're always gonna need more. Now, I do recommend you have some small and some large, and if you can get even a larger one, because you are gonna use them in various projects, and you're always gonna be pulling them out, especially if you're gonna do glue ups. And the more that you have, the better the product's gonna turn out. Now, if you do wanna get fancy to try to measure things, very small things, and very precise, you could always get one of these. You could also use it for corners, some angles as well. Not necessary, but it can help you. Something I always recommend is a punch. You always need a punch because this will help you set the nails perfectly wherever you need, and also the screws. You always should punch your hole first, see where it goes, punch it, and then drive your pilot hole, countersink, and then your screw. Now, something that you may already have laying around is a mechanical pencil. I love this mechanical pencil. I saw it on one of the woodworking videos and I was like, I have to have it. And the reason is because it's just very nice. It's very nice to work with. It's very inspiring. It retracts automatically, so you're never breaking the lead. It's also 0.7, so you do need a heavier lead, so that way it doesn't just scrape off whenever you mark on wood. But this one is perfect, and it is great, and it is very aesthetically pleasing, and it's very inspiring to use. So it actually, when I'm doing all the sketches, I just want to keep doing sketches, and it keeps me working. Now, for the last hand tool, I do recommend a planer. Now, this is a number 7 planer. Depends on what you're going to be using. I know you're going to learn about these later on when you start woodworking, and they are very specific, the sizes to what you want to do. Usually the 7 is one of the most versatile ones, and is the one I always use to get things nice and even. But I do recommend you get one because this will actually introduce you to the culture of doing everything by hand. But it's not necessary. But then again, it's something very nice to work with, and it'll keep you grounded. Now on to the power tools. The first power tools that I recommend to you is this set right here. Now, I know there's a lot of controversy about the Ryobis. I've never had a problem with them, and these things have been with me for a very long time and not a single problem. So in my opinion, I recommend them very much because they last a long time and they're very affordable for the people who are just starting, especially if you don't know what you need yet, because that's gonna happen. You're gonna start doing woodworking, but there's a lot of areas of woodworking, and until you decide which area you wanna go to, you won't be able to get very nice expensive tools, because then you're gonna waste it if you're not gonna use them. So the first set that I actually ever had was this set right here, which was an impact driver and a drill. I also bought 2 sets of bits for them. They're very nice. Then later on, I bought a Forstner set because this actually allowed me to drill holes. So actual precise sized holes. This is actually a very nice set with these 2 tools right here. And with this, you can pretty much do everything that a press drill can do. So that just takes care of a lot of the work that you're gonna be doing. Now, another tool that I had from the beginning was this circular saw. Now, it is actually a small circular saw, and with this, I've been able to get through this whole entire time. I did not get a table saw until a very long time after I got started in woodworking. This thing got me through it all. Now, there's pretty much anything that you can do with a table saw, you can do with this. And that's something that it's hard to believe, but yes, it is true. You can do with this. You just need to figure out how to do it. You need to build yourself a jig. You need to take your time to actually do it right. Now, is it gonna take more time for setup? Yes. But this thing is portable. You can take it anywhere, and it is pretty much my go-to tool when I need to cut down anything. Now, you can see this one in pretty much all of my videos. I do my first cuts with these, then I go to the table saw. And that is exactly why, because it just works perfect. It is portable. I can do very precise cuts and then move on to milling down on the table saw. And finally, the last tool that I want to talk about for beginning woodworking is a palm sander. It doesn't have to be this one. It can be this one. This is a very handy one. I've taken this beyond of its use that it should have been. But this thing is very trustworthy. Now, one of the most important things when you're doing woodworking is the finishes, and this will get you there. This will get you to whatever finish you're trying to achieve. Now, you do not need to get a big one. This one is very precise. I like the fact that the mouse it's got the point on the front because you can get into the little corners. But if you have a bigger one, then you can't do that. So especially if you're gonna work on smaller projects, get a smaller tool. That's a very good recommendation, because with bigger tools, it's gonna make it harder. Now, when you get to the point that you are starting to do a lot of bigger projects, you're starting to do a lot of more complex things, and you already have a passion and you've already saved up some money and you're starting to sell things and now you're working on furniture and stuff like that, then is when I recommend you to go to a table saw. At that point, you already have a passion. At that point, you kind of know where you're going to. And that's when you're gonna start working to get your first table saw. Now, they are all expensive, and there's a reason for that. It's because they are meant to last your entire life, and they are meant to do a lot of work. Now, within the realm of table saws, there's many different ones. There's many types. There's construction, there's everything you can think of. There's a type of table saw for it. Now, my recommendation is take your time and actually do the research. Now, do not rush into buying something because you think you need it. Actually get to a point where you actually need it and do your research to see what's the best one for your situation. In my experience, I got this Dewalt secondhand. This was already used, and it works absolutely, it's fine. It just works amazing. All you do is change out blades from time to time, and that is pretty much it. It will still be working, it will still keep going. Now, this is a construction table saw, and that is a difference because I don't have enough room to get an actual table saw for my garage or workshop. But there's no problem that this was secondhand because these tools are made to last. So make sure that the previous owner actually took care of it, and it should last you your entire life. Now, do I recommend this table saw? Absolutely. I recommend this table saw because it's very versatile and doesn't take up much space. You can plug right into your regular power outlet, and you can pretty much do anything with it. Now, is there better ones? Absolutely. But then again, it gets to a point in which whatever the needs are for the projects that you're building, that is what's going to define what table saw you should get. And don't think of just now, think of the future, what you're going to need in the future to keep doing the projects that you're doing and bigger. Always remember, you can always scale up. Now, let's say you've already got some of these tools and you got a table saw. What do I recommend you to get next? One of the tools that I got later on was actually a jigsaw. And this, I actually got by with all of this without getting a jigsaw. I do recommend you to get a jigsaw, but it's also a very specific thing that you need to get done with a jigsaw that you cannot get done with these. And usually you're gonna need a jigsaw if you're building anything with a lot of curves, and especially things that are big, because the jigsaw is actually not to keep very small details with. So especially bigger construction stuff, you're gonna need a jigsaw. Now, on that same note, a bandsaw is a very important thing. I do not own a bandsaw because I can actually get pretty much everything done with these here. Now, will I get a bandsaw? Absolutely. I do see a bandsaw in the future coming to this workshop. But then again, I also recommend you to take it with time. I still don't have the need for it. That's why I haven't gotten it yet. I do not do enough projects that I say, hey, I really wish I could have a bandsaw. So that's why I haven't gotten one yet. But I do recommend you to get a bandsaw whenever you can and whenever you need it. Now, another specialty tool that I recommend to get is a nail gun or a nailer or a brad nailer, whatever you want to call them. Now, I call this a specialty tool because it does the same job as you can with a hammer, but then again, it's going to help you do it faster. Now, you do need a compressor for it, and there's a lot of different gauges for it. So it all depends on the research and the projects that you're going to be doing. Especially if you're going to be doing framing, sure, go for it. If you're going to do a lot of things that are not going to need a lot of weight, you just need to hold things together, then yes, you can definitely use this a lot. Now, it's not something that you need, but it is something that I recommend to make things a lot faster. And lastly, one of the tools that I recommend will be a router. Now, this is a small size router. Now, it is a palm router with an attachment to make it a plunge router. Now, I do recommend this, especially this one right here, because it comes with a kit with a lot of things. And you're gonna be using this for a lot of things. I can do an entire video, and I will be doing an entire video of how many things you can do with a palm router. I highly recommend it. It's not very expensive, and this will help you get all the finishes that you were looking for, that you've always tried to achieve, but they were hard to get to. This is just gonna make it a breeze. Now, it's also gonna help you do data. It's gonna help you do a lot of things that I will be showing in a future video, but I highly recommend you to get a router. After you've gotten all the essential tools, get yourself a router. So there you go, guys. These are my tools that I use in pretty much almost everything that I use on a daily project. So again, guys, the links for all the tools that you can get in here are down in the description. Don't forget to check them out. There you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned a lot about the tools that I use and the tools that I recommend. If you know somebody that would like to know more information about the tools, please share this video with them. Please give it a thumbs up if you learned something, or let me know what you think about the tools that I gave a small little review about. Let me know in the comments. Let me know which ones you have, which ones that work, which ones you also recommend. It's a great community in woodworking, and I love all the help that goes around. And I really wish I would have known this from the beginning. This would have been a great video, and this is exactly why I'm doing it, because some of you guys have asked for it. Thanks again for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next build.